بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم صلى الله عليك يا رسول الله صلى الله عليك يا سيدي ويا مولاي يا أبا عبد الله صلى الله عليك يا سيدي يا أمير المؤمنين يا رحمة الله الواسعة ويا باب نجاة الأمة يا ليتنا كنا معكم سادتي فنفوز فوزا عظيما. قال الله تعالى في كتابه الكريم: بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم: وضرب الله مثلا قرية كانت آمنة مطمئنة يأتيها رزقها رغدا من كل مكان فكفرت بأنعم الله فأذاقها الله لباس الجوع والخوف بما كانوا يصنعون. صلوا على محمد وآل محمد. We live in a very competitive world where money means everything, and money means power. Power for you, power for your family, power for your country, power for your community, power for your religion. The success of countries is measured by the wealth of that country. The wealthier a country is, the more successful it is considered. They take the average GDP of a country to measure its success. Are people in that country rich? Are they poor? How much do they make? How much do they earn? How much do they spend? Do they own a home? Do they own a car? This is all taken into consideration when considering how successful a country is. Some say, we don't want money. We are happy with what we have. What Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us is enough for us. Good for you. Good for feeling satisfied and for accepting what Allah wills. But if you can make more, then do more. Make more. If not for yourself, for your family. If not for your family, for your religion, for your community, for your Islamic center, for your country, for fellow mu'mineen and mu'minat who are suffering around the world. Make more money. If not for yourself, for them, for your community. The hadith says, Al-kaddu ala iyalih kal-mujahidi fi sabilillah. He who goes out and makes a living and fights to make a living is as if he's fighting in the sake of Allah Azza wa Jal. One day, Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa saw a gardener, a farmer. His hands are dirty with dirt, with sand. He's been planting and working in the farm all day. Rasulullah grabbed his hand and he kissed it and he embraced it. And he said, this is a hand that Allah loves, a hand that works, a hand that produces, achieves for himself and for his family members. One day Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa he saw a gentleman praying in the masjid, perhaps performing i'tikaf, praying, worshiping, fasting, and so he asked him, when you worship all day and you fast all day and you worship all night in the mosque, who is taking care of you? Who is taking care of your family? He said, my brother. We've decided that I worship all day and my brother works all day, and he makes my livelihood and his livelihood. Rasulullah said, أَخُوكَ أَعْبَدُ مِنْ. Your brother is the true worshipper. Your brother who's making a living and going out to make his livelihood and your livelihood, this is true worship. The one who's helping others, not the one just worshiping in the mosque. Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam planted 1,000 palm trees with his own hands. And he dug the wells in Masjid al-Shajara, Abar Ali. He dug these wells. For whom? To make a wealth for himself or to benefit the people. He planted 1,000 trees so that he may benefit and he may benefit others. Islam doesn't say only work for the akhirah and neglect your dunya. No. وَابْتَغِ فِي مَا آتَاكَ اللَّهُ الْدَارَ الْآخِرَةَ وَلَا تَنْسَ نَصِيبَكَ مِنَ الدُّنْيَا. Work for akhirah. Achieve for akhirah. Try to attain a good place in akhirah, but also don't forget about your dunya. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. We, brothers and sisters, we all live in difficult economic times. We all know this. We just came out of a pandemic. We have the Russian war against Ukraine. There's high gas prices. It's the world's worst inflation in decades. There's a very competitive job market. Finding an affordable house is extremely difficult. And now here in Canada, you have the new carbon tax that will make everything skyrocket. Economically, things are not so great. We've seen better times. And everyone seems to have economic problems. Many people are in debt. Many people go from paycheck to paycheck. A lot of bills, and they have nothing else to save. And God forbid you have a medical condition, or that you get in a car accident, or you need to renovate your house, then everything skyrockets as well. Now we've seen economic analysts on CNN, on CSNBC, we've read the New York Times, and we've read the Washington Post and the Wall Street Journal to tell us about how to improve the economy. But now let's try something new. We've tried all these things. Let's try something new. Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam states, أَنَا مَدِينَةُ الْعِلْمِ وَعَلِيٌّ بَابُهَا. I am the city of knowledge, and Ali is the gate to the city of knowledge, to the city of wisdom. Is it possible that Ali ibn Abi Talib can teach us something about economics? Is this possible? A man from 14 centuries ago can teach us about economics and to enhance our economic situation in the year 2024. Is this possible? Well, when we read about the life of Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam, when he ruled for less than 5 years, 4 months and something, 9 months, 10 months, historians tell us, narrations tell us that there was no poverty. When Amir al-Mu'mineen ruled, there was no poverty. The day that Amir al-Mu'mineen went out in Kufa and he saw a beggar, he asked, "Ma hada? What is this?" He didn't ask, "Who is this?" They told him it's a Christian beggar, thinking that Amir al-Mu'mineen is not going to be upset since he's Christian, he's not a Muslim. And of course, Amir al-Mu'mineen was offended. He was upset. Besides the point, he said, "Ma hada? What is this?" Meaning Amir al-Mu'mineen was not used to the sight of seeing a beggar in Kufa. But because during the 5 years that he ruled, Amir al-Mu'mineen eradicated poverty. There was no more poverty during the 5 years that Amir al-Mu'mineen ruled. That means Amir al-Mu'mineen lived an experience of economic prosperity. Thanks due to his economic policies and his financial policies. So is there something that we can learn from Amir al-Mu'mineen? Bear with me, my dear brothers and sisters. Tonight and tomorrow night, perhaps we can learn a thing or two about economics from the life of Amir al-Mu'mineen. Wa sallu ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. First off, what does Islam say about poverty? Where does poverty come from? Why do we have poverty and why do we have poor people around the world? Here, there's several theories. Number one, The first theory says there's not enough resources. Not enough resources. Water, clean water, trees, food, fruits, land, housing. There's not enough resources. And hence, first come, first serve. Whoever gets resources, they've made it. Otherwise, you'll be left without resources. Hence, here in this world, on earth, we're suffering from low resources, not enough resources. The rich get the resources, and there will be some left without resources. The second theory says there's a crisis of distribution. There are resources, but there's unfair distribution of wealth, and hence government should own production and distribution so that we make sure the wealth, the resources are distributed equally. Every person gets what they need. That way we can ensure that everyone gets what they need, despite their social standing. So whatever it is that you're doing for a job, whatever it is your profession, whether you're a doctor or you're a janitor, there should be equal distribution of resources amongst people. And of course, this is the Marxist, communist theory. And the problem with this theory is that instead of trying to make everyone rich, everyone will become poor, again, according to this theory. The third theory is the Islamic theory. The third theory says that we have an abundance of resources. We don't have a lack of resources. Allah says, وَآتَاكُم مِّن كُلِّ مَا سَأَلْتُمُوهُ. He gave you from everything that which you've asked of Him, everything that which you need. وَإِن تَعُدُّوا نِعْمَةَ اللَّهِ لَا تُحْصُوهَا. If you count the blessings of Allah, you will not be able to count them. Meaning there is abundance of resources. But the problem is, the problem of poverty comes from transgression. It's because when the rich are not willing to help out the poor, when the rich do not give their dues to the poor, Islam says that we can fix the problem of poverty by taking some from the rich and distributing it amongst the poor. 80% of the world's resources are owned by 20% of the world's population. 80% of resources are owned by 20%. That means these 20% are not sharing. They're not willing to share their wealth. Islam comes and tells them, share your wealth, and we will be able to eradicate poverty. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. Now let's come to see poverty in the eyes of Imam Ali alayhi salam, in the eyes of Amir al-Mu'mineen. Amir al-Mu'mineen says that poverty is the greatest death. Al-faqru huwa al-mawtu al-akbar. Poverty is death. Some people would prefer to die than not be able to pay their bills or live on the streets or can't afford their mortgage and can't pay off their loans. Poverty is the greatest death. There are many people that commit suicide yearly because of poverty. All of a sudden they went bankrupt. All of a sudden they lost their wealth. And hence we see that poverty causes crime. All crime, many crimes, I won't say all, many crimes stem from poverty. Theft, robbery, gangs, murder, assault, battery. A lot of these crimes, why are they committed? Because of poverty. Because someone is suffering from poverty. They can't pay their bills. They can't pay their mortgage. They resort to crime. Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam summarizes the reasons for poverty in the following. And for the health and security of our camera, send a loud salawat. Is everything okay? Amir al-Mu'mineen summarizes the reasons for poverty in the following. Number one, monopoly. Monopoly over wealth. The rich have a monopoly over their wealth. They don't share. They don't share. The world's minority, the wealthy minority, they have a monopoly over wealth. They don't share. They don't spend, and hence people suffer from poverty. Amir al-Mu'mineen says, مَا جَاعَ فَقِيرٌ إِلَّا بِمَا مُتَّعَ بِهِ غَنِي. A poor person will not go hungry The reason why a poor person goes hungry is because a wealthy person is eating too much. If they were to share their wealth with the poor, there would not be poverty. So number one, monopoly. Number two, corruption. Corruption of rulers. Corruption of oppressive tyrants. Corruption of executives. People that live off of connections, not on personal merit, but on who you know and who can get you the job and who you know in power. This is corruption. Amir al-Mu'mineen says that corruption is the basis of poverty. When he came to power after 25 years of corruption, and specifically after 12 years when Uthman ibn Affan ruled, Amir al-Mu'mineen faced corruption. He saw that there was a lot of corruption. And hence he says, أَلَا إِنَّ كُلَّ قَطِيعَةٍ أَقْطَعَهَا عُثْمَانٌ وَكُلَّ مَالٍ أَعْطَاهُ مِنْ مَالِ اللَّهِ فَهُوَ مَرْدُودٌ فِي بَيْتِ الْمَالِ. Any money that was distributed by Uthman, given unjustly, oppressively, based on family connections, based on family ties, I will take it and I will return it. فَإِنَّ الْحَقَّ الْقَدِيمِ لَا يَبْطُلُهُ شَيْءٍ. Truth is truth. And I will make sure that nothing goes against the truth. وَلَوْ وَجَدْتُ وَقَدْ تُزُوِّجَ بِهِ النِّسَاء. Even if I found that this money was used to get married, I don't care, I will return the money. وَفُرَّقَ فِي الْبُلْدَانِ لَرَدَدْتُهُ إِلَى حَالِهِ. I will return the money. Amir al-Mu'mineen. Why was Amir al-Mu'mineen fought? Why didn't all the other khulafa, when they come to power, they didn't face civil wars? Why did Amir al-Mu'mineen face 3 civil wars during his 5 years in power? Because he fought corruption. And then he says, فَإِنَّ فِي الْعَدْلِ سِعَةً وَمَنْ ضَاقَ عَنْهُ الْحَقِّ فَالْجَوْرُ عَلَيْهِ أَضْيَقُ. He who cannot handle justice will definitely not be able to handle oppression. Amir al-Mu'mineen was there to eradicate corruption and to institute justice. One day Amir al-Mu'mineen goes shopping with his servant Qambar. They buy 2 shirts, one for 2 dinars and one for 1 dinar. Qambar assumed that the shirt for 2 dinars was for Amir al-Mu'mineen and the shirt for 1 dinar was for Qambar. Qambar noticed that Amir al-Mu'mineen switched. He took the shirt for 1 dinar and he gave the 2 dinar shirt to Qambar. He told him, Ya Qambar, you're young and I'm an old man. Young men look for new clothing. Us old men, we don't look for anything fancy. This was the justice of Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam. Number 3, unemployment. Amir al-Mu'mineen says that unemployment is a major cause of poverty, but not the unemployment that is enforced upon you. Some people are laid off. They lose their job. This is not their fault. Some people, their unemployment is chosen. It's by their will. They wish not to work. Or they're picky. There's no job that satisfies them. They don't want to do this. They don't want to do that. They make excuses. I'm overqualified. This job doesn't pay well. And they remain unemployed and hence they become poor. Amir al-Mu'mineen says, مَنْ أَبْطَأَ بِهِ عَمَلُهُ لَمْ يَسْرُعْ بِهِ حَسَبُهُ. He who does not perform, does not achieve, does not contribute, it doesn't matter who his family is, his grandfather, his father. It's about your achievement, your personal production, how much you can produce, how much you can achieve, and you will be successful. Number 4, stinginess. Stinginess is a major reason for the crash of the economy. It's a major reason for poverty. People don't wish to spend. People don't wish to spend their money. A good economy requires spending, buying and selling. When you buy and you sell and other members of the community, they buy and sell, the economy grows. Stinginess stops the economy from growing. If you don't want to buy, if you don't want to sell, if you don't want to buy a house, you don't seek out a mortgage, you don't go out and shop, you don't spend your money, the economy will collapse. When there's no spending, stinginess. Amir al-Mu'mineen says, عَجِبْتُ لِلْبَخِيلِ يَسْتَعْجِلُ الْفَقْرَ الَّذِي مِنْهُ هَرَبْ وَيَفُوتُهُ الْغِنَى الَّذِي إِيَّاهُ طَلَبْ. I'm astonished at someone who's stingy, someone who's greedy. He runs away from poverty, but he lives in poverty. He wishes to become rich, but he's the last person to become rich because he doesn't spend. He doesn't buy. فَيَعِيشُ فِي الدُّنْيَا عَيْشَ الْفُقَرَاءِ He lives in dunya like poor people. وَيُحَاسَبُ فِي الْآخِرَةِ حِسَابَ الْأَغْنِيَاءِ And on the day of judgment, he will be judged as a rich person. In another hadith, he says, الْبَخِيلُ خَازُنٌ لِغَيْرِهِ A person who is stingy only keeps his money for others. And we know people that are stingy. I know, you know, we all know people. They make a lot of money. They make a wealth, a lot of money, but they don't spend. These people, you know what they're doing? They're making an investment and they're saving up. But you know who they're saving up for? Not themselves, their children. It is their children. During their life, they don't spend on their children, on their family members, a husband on his wife. He doesn't spend, but he's actually saving up for them when he dies. And they probably secretly wish that he leaves soon, inshallah. So they benefit from his money. This is stinginess. This is an illness. This is a disease, the disease of stinginess. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. As we mentioned, after 25 years after the death of Rasulullah, Amir al-Mu'mineen finally became the official Khalifa. Although Amir al-Mu'mineen was Khalifa from day one, and he was the Imam from day one. But he became the political leader after 25 years. After 25 years of mismanagement, 25 years of corruption, 25 years of destruction to the Muslim Ummah, now Amir al-Mu'mineen came to power. How was Amir al-Mu'mineen able to eradicate poverty within such a short amount of time? 25 years of corruption, and now Amir al-Mu'mineen was able to eradicate poverty. How? Number one, remove all corrupt governors. There was no corruption in the days of Amir al-Mu'mineen. Amir al-Mu'mineen had no tolerance, zero tolerance for corruption, even if it was his own cousin. And hence, Amir al-Mu'mineen heard something about Ibn Abbas, his own cousin, Ibn Abbas, who was a governor at the time. Amir al-Mu'mineen wrote him a strong letter, a sharp-tongued letter to his cousin Ibn Abbas, because it doesn't matter. Even if it's his own cousin, his own brother Aqil came to him in the middle of the night asking for a higher salary. And Aqil was blind. You've all have heard of the story, and it's mentioned in Nahj al-Balagha, where Amir al-Mu'mineen prepared an iron rod he put it on fire, and he told Aqil to open his hands, and he put that iron in his hand. That burnt him. And Aqil started shouting, Ya Amir al-Mu'mineen, what are you doing? He said, Ya Aqil, you couldn't handle a small fire, and you want to throw me in the larger fire because you're my brother? Amir al-Mu'mineen had zero tolerance for corruption. This is one. Two, there was accountability. If we have accountability, my dear brothers and sisters, there would be no corruption. Government officials, if we hold them accountable. Businessmen, we hold them accountable. If we hold our employees accountable, there would be no corruption. There would be no poverty. If we hold everyone accountable. Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam heard of the governor of Basra, Uthman ibn Hunayf. Uthman ibn Hunayf was righteous. He was religious. He was pious. Yet one day he went to a gathering, to a meeting, to a feast where only the rich were invited. The poor were not invited. Amir al-Mu'mineen writes him a letter scolding him. أما بعد يا ابن حنيف فقد بلغني أن رجلا من فتية أهل البصرة دعاك إلى مأدبة فأسرعت إليها تستطاب لك الألوان وتنقل إليك الجفان وما ظننت أنك تجيب إلى طعام قوم عائلهم مجفو وغنيهم مدعو. يا عثمان ibn Hunayf, I thought higher of you. I'm disappointed in you of going to a place only the rich are invited and not the poor. You see how Amir al-Mu'mineen held his governors accountable, and he questioned them for the slightest mistake. Although going to a feast where only the rich are invited, it's not haram. Uthman ibn Hunayf didn't do anything haram, but it's not befitting of a governor that represents Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salam. Amir al-Mu'mineen instituted a policy called "Min ayna laka hada?" Where did you get this from? You, the governor, you, the official, government official. You built wealth. Where did you get this from? Where? From Bayt al-Mal? From people's money? From the Islamic treasury? Where did you get this from? Amir al-Mu'mineen, he would tell the people of Kufa, Ya Ahl al-Kufa, إن خرجت من عندكم من غير رحلي وراحلتي وغلامي فأنا خائن. O the people of Kufa, the day that I came to become your Amir, the day that I leave, if I leave with more than my servant and my horse and some of the food that I came with, then I am treacherous, I'm deceiving you. What does this mean? This means that Amir al-Mu'mineen came to power and left power, and his wealth was exactly the same. His wealth did not increase. He didn't build an empire. The problem of corruption, we deal with corruption. We have corruption on earth. We have corrupt rulers and leaders. This is what creates poverty. Number 3, equal distribution. Amir al-Mu'mineen, his economic policy was equal distribution. No privileges, no family members, no special connections where family members had privileges. No, he says, Wallah, لو كان المال لي لساويت بينهم فكيف هي أموال المسلمين. If it was my own money, I would distribute it equally. What about God's money and people's money? It's people's money. How can I treat people differently based on lineage, based on connections, based on family relations? This is the money of the people. I will distribute it equally. And finally, number 4, an emphasis on production and not taxes. This is something that we may benefit from. Amir al-Mu'mineen, in his Ahd li Malik al-Ashtar, this masterpiece that is understudied, needs to be studied. There needs to be PhD theses on Amir al-Mu'mineen's letter to his governor of Egypt, Malik al-Ashtar. Ahd Amir al-Mu'mineen li Malik al-Ashtar. This is a political, economic masterpiece. Amir al-Mu'mineen gives Malik al-Ashtar teachings of how to rule, of how to treat people, how to rule Egypt, and part of it, he says, produce. Let the government produce, achieve, open factories, work on agriculture, produce, plant. Let the government produce money instead of taxing. Instead of taxing people and taking their wealth, people work hard to achieve their wealth. You come and you take it, a government comes and takes 10%, 20%. This is not fair. This is not just. A government can make money not through taxes, but by production, by agriculture. He says, وَلْيَكُنْ نَظَرُكَ فِي عِمَارَةِ الْأَرْضِ أَبْلَغُ مِنْ نَظَرِكَ فِي اسْتِجْلَابِ الْخَرَاجِ لأن ذلك لا يدرك إلا بالعمارة. Build, produce, make money. A government can make money. It doesn't need to charge people. It doesn't need to charge people with taxes. Today here in Canada, you have the new carbon tax, and everyone's worried about the carbon tax. Everything's going to go up. Gas prices, everything related to cars is going to go up. Why? There's no need for, in the eyes of Amir al-Mu'mineen, in the philosophy of Amir al-Mu'mineen, there's no need for tax. There's a need for government production, to encourage production, to encourage achievement, agriculture, to make money. وصلى على محمد وعلى محمد. On a eve like the 19th of Ramadan, Amir al-Mu'mineen was fasting. On a night like this, Amir al-Mu'mineen spends his night in the house of his daughter, Kulthum. The final moments of Amir al-Mu'mineen. Amir al-Mu'mineen was fasting, and he knew that his fate was in the month of Ramadan. Because Rasulullah had told him many years ago that it is in the month of Ramadan that the worst, ashq al-akhirin, the worst of the people to come at the end of times will slaughter you and drench your beard with your blessed blood, with your purified blood. On a night like this, moments like this, Amir al-Mu'mineen comes to the house of his daughter Kulthum to have iftar. Kulthum prepares her iftar for Amir al-Mu'mineen. She adds a bit more food. Amir al-Mu'mineen would break his fast with dry bread and maybe a date and some milk. This was his iftar. Amir al-Mu'mineen did not have a lavish iftar. He did not have all types of food. He did not crave all types of food. A very simple iftar. Some crumbs of bread, dry bread, a date or two, and some milk. And that was it. Kulthum, on a night like this, she adds a bit more bread, a bit more milk, a bit of salt, and some dates. Amir al-Mu'mineen was very upset at her. Very upset at her. He tells her, my daughter, you offend me. You offend me. She said, my father, what have I done to offend you? He said, yes, you've offended me. أتريدين أن يطول وقوفي بين يدي رب العالمين? Do you want my standing in front of Allah? Do you want me to stand for a long time on the day of judgment to be held accountable for eating more than I deserve? This was Ali ibn Abi Talib. This was the zuhd of Amir al-Mu'mineen. This is how he saw dunya. Dunya had no place in the eyes of Ali ibn Abi Talib. He would say, Ya dunya ghurri ghayri, abi ta'arrafti am ilayya tashawwaqti, la hina hinuki, qad talaqtuki thalathan, la raj'ata li fiki. Oh dunya, I divorce you, a triple divorce. Go and fool someone else. You cannot have a spell on the mind and heart of Ali ibn Abi Talib. Go fool someone else. This was Ali ibn Abi Talib. One day, Amir al-Mu'mineen left his house and went in the forest. Abu Darda said, I chased Ali ibn Abi Talib to see where is he going in the middle of the night, going into a forest. He says that I saw Ali ibn Abi Talib praying, standing towards the Qibla, praying, weeping, crying until he fell. I went and I saw Amir al-Mu'mineen not moving at all, stiff like a piece of wood, like a tree. I tried to move him and he wouldn't move. Several times I tried moving him and he wouldn't move. So I said, Inna lillah wa inna ilayhi raji'un. Ali ibn Abi Talib has passed away. He came, he knocked at the door of Fatima Az-Zahraa. He offered his condolences. She said, what are you talking about? He said, Ali ibn Abi Talib is dead. I saw him, he's dead. She said, Kalla lam yamut. وَإِنَّمَا هَذِهِ الْحَالَةِ. This state comes to Ali ibn Abi Talib every single night. Every single night. It is repeated. Tonight, Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam, after iftar, he spends the night in munajat, in dua, in istighfar, in the beautiful munajat of Amir al-Mu'mineen. The people of Kufa will no longer hear the beautiful munajat of Ali ibn Abi Talib. مولاي يا مولاي أنت الغني وأنا الفقير وهل يرحم الفقير إلا الغني مولاي يا مولاي أنت العزيز وأنا الذليل وهل يرحم الذليل إلا العزيز. He spent the entire night in munajat, in dua, in reciting Quran, in praying, in reciting Salatul Layl. Amir al-Mu'mineen would come out every couple of moments. He would come out from the house of Kulthum, he would look at the moon, he would look at the sky. He would say, هي والله الليلة التي وعدنيها Habibi Rasulullah. This is the night that was promised by my beloved Rasulullah. It was time to go for Salat al-Fajr. Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam leaves his house. His belt gets stuck at the door. He removes his belt, he puts it back on, and he says, أشدد حيازيمك للموت فإن الموت لاقيك. Oh Ali, put on your belt and prepare yourself for death. For death is surely coming. When Amir al-Mu'mineen was leaving the house of Kulthum, there were swans, there were geese that were outside of the house of Amir al-Mu'mineen. They began to shout. These swans began to shout. Amir al-Mu'mineen said, صَوَائِحٌ تَتْبَعُهَا نَوَائِحٌ. It is these swans that are shouting, moments from now my daughters will be crying as well. Amir al-Mu'mineen goes to the masjid of Kufa. He goes on top. He goes to the minara. The people of Kufa will hear the adhan of Ali ibn Abi Talib for one final time. Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah. Ashhadu anna Muhammadan Rasulullah. Ali ibn Abi Talib comes down. He comes into the masjid. He sees Abdul Rahman ibn Muljam sleeping on his stomach. He tells him, قم يا هذا, do not sleep. أما علمت أن هذه نومة الشيطان. Get up, يا هذا, it is time for salah. Do you not know that this is the sleep of shaitan? Get up and prepare for salah. Amir al-Mu'mineen goes to his mihrab and he enters in Nafilat al-Fajr. It wasn't Salat al-Fajr. It was the 2 units before Salat al-Fajr. Allahu Akbar. Ali ibn Abi Talib goes into Salah. Abdul Rahman ibn Muljam, he comes and he stands in the front row, in the first row of Salah. He has his poisonous sword prepared underneath his cloak. Amir al-Mu'mineen goes for ruku'. He goes for sujood. Subhana Rabbiyal A'la wa bihamdih. He raises his head from sujood. Abdul Rahman ibn Muljam comes out and strikes the Imam on his head. Amir al-Mu'mineen falls and he shouts, فزت ورب الكعبة قتل ابن اليهودية. By my master, I have won. I am victorious. Amir al-Mu'mineen is drenched in his blood. Amir al-Mu'mineen falls in his mihrab. There's a strong wind, a strong gush. The moon eclipses and the voice of Jibreel is heard in the sky. تهدمت والله أركان الهدى قتل علي المرتضى قتل ابن عم المصطفى. لا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم. إنا لله وإنا إليه راجعون. وسيعلم الذين ظلموا أي منقلب ينقلبون والعاقبة للمتقين. نسألك اللهم وندعوك. Raise your hands in dua. باسمك العلي الأعظم الأعز الأجل الأكرم يا الله. اللهم لا تدع لنا ذنبا إلا غفرته ولا هما إلا فرجته ولا عيبا إلا سترته ولا خوفا إلا أمنته ولا رزقا إلا بسطته ولا شملا إلا جمعته ولا مرضا إلا شفيته ولا غائبا إلا حفظته وأدنيته ولا حاجة من حوائج الدنيا والآخرة لك فيها رضا ولنا فيها صلاح إلا قضيتها ويسرتها يا أرحم الراحمين. ولأرواح المؤمنين والمؤمنات والعلماء والشهداء نقرأ سورة الفاتحة مع الصلوات.